Let us discuss what is state and why is it important in React. But first, let us quickly discuss what we typically mean by state when we write server-side OOP code in Java, C#, etc. In object-oriented programming, we typically say objects have data and methods. So for example, my bank account can be considered an object and my balance can be considered as data, and the methods that modify my balance, deposit and withdraw can be considered as methods. And this data over here is what is typically referred to as state, and the methods over here are typically referred to as behavior. So the point to note is that in server-side OOP code, data is typically referred to as state. Now let us discuss what state means in React front-end code. Here I have tried to classify which pieces typically make up the state in React front-end code. And the first is data, which typically comes from the server. And the second is user selections or user activity in the UI. That means information about what the user has been doing in the UI. And the third piece I have listed here is info about UI elements. Let us discuss these different pieces of state by going to the Amazon website. So I have opened the Amazon website and I am looking for laptops. On the left here we have several filters. If we select any of them, the data over here will change. That means the list of laptops that are displayed to me will change. So I have selected a couple of filters. I have selected a CPU. I have selected Intel Core i7 as my CPU. And I have selected the operating system to be Windows 10. Apart from those two filters, under sort by, I have also selected price low to high. So I want my results to be sorted by price and from low to high. I also have added two laptops to the cart. As you can see here, there are two items in the cart and their images are being shown on the right over here. And as you can see here, I'm not logged in. So if I hover over this menu item, we can see a pop-up being displayed. And when I move my mouse outside this pop-up, the pop-up disappears. If I hover over the menu item again, the pop-up comes back, and again if we move out, the pop-up disappears. So as a user, I have searched for laptops and that led me to the laptops category. And then I selected a couple of filters here on the left, and I also specified how I want my results to be sorted by making a selection in the sort by dropdown over here. Then I added two items to the cart which are being displayed here, and I also hovered over this menu item and moved my mouse outside the pop-up, and I repeated that a couple of times. So let us try to identify the different pieces of state on this web page. So the first piece I had listed here was data from the server. So all of these laptops that are being displayed in the center, we can say that they correspond to data from the server. So this is one piece of state, and here I have selected a couple of filters. One is the CPU type and the other was the operating system, and these two filters together with whatever I have selected in the sort by field over here, that information is what I have classified here as user selections. And if we go to the cart, we can see that there are two items in the cart. As a user, I have performed actions to add two items to the cart. So that is what I have tried to classify here under user activity in the UI. And coming to info about UI elements, I had hovered over this menu item and this pop-up came up, and when I moved my mouse outside the pop-up disappeared. Depending on the user's action, this pop-up is either being shown or being hidden. So that information also has to be there in the state. A very common example is the loading GIF that we show when we make AJAX requests. So this simple piece of information about whether we are displaying the loading GIF to the user or not is also important as far as state is concerned. This also has to be part of the state, and that is what I have tried to classify as info about UI elements. So unlike state in server-side code, state in React front-end code will comprise of other things in addition to data that comes from the server. Now let us quickly talk about the developer and React partnership. I'm calling this a partnership because the developer does part of the work and React does part of the work. If we were to implement this page in React as a developer, what we would do is we would first identify state. That means the things that change on this page when the user interacts with the page. And next, we declare UI in code using JSX, props, and state. And then we write code to change state. And by that I mean we will have to write state management code to specify how the state should change as the user interacts with this page. For example, if the user selects more filters over here, then the list of laptops that are being displayed over here will change. So as the user interacts with this page by clicking on different things, we'll have to specify how the state should change. Notice that in the 3 steps that I have listed here, I have not mentioned writing code to manipulate the DOM. That is because when the state changes, React will do the work of updating the DOM. So as developers, we never worry about how to update the DOM. Once we declare our UI, the only thing that we concentrate on is how to change the state correctly, how to do state management correctly. And we leave the work of updating the DOM or updating the UI to React. All in all, the core principle of React can be boiled down to this single statement over here, that UI is a function of state. So if the state changes, the UI will change, and React will take care of that. That means React will make sure that the UI changes when the state changes. So as developers, we concentrate on state management and we leave the work of updating the DOM, that means updating the UI, to React. So let us examine the developer and React partnership once again. So as developers, we identify the state and we declare the UI using JSX props state, and then we write code to change the state, that means state management, and then React will update the DOM, that means it will update the UI.